Hey, you asshole, who the hell do you think you are? I'm just kidding, guys. I wanted a reason to use the angry Kaihen avatar. I never get to use that. Anyway, this is the second part of a two-part video about how strong the skeleton soldier is from the skeleton soldier couldn't protect the dungeon. So if you've not seen that first video, go ahead and click on the link now. I'll give you a second. Alright, you done? Then let's go on. In this video, we're going to talk a lot more about his skills that he can use in combat, and what he actually uses when he's fighting, and basically this video covers how powerful he is like a lot better than the first part. The first part is just so that you can understand this video. In this video, we're going to talk about his weapons, abilities, magic, and equipment, which might sound like a lot, but actually it's pretty simple stuff, so it's pretty easy to run through. We're going to start with his weapons, and when I say weapons, I don't mean the weapons he carries around, but rather the weapons he's capable of using, which at this point is actually all weapons. When he got the weapon adaptation skill, he became effective with basically any weapon he picks up, regardless of who made it, how they made it, or what its intended purpose is. He can use basically anything as a weapon and knows how to use it proficiently. He's particularly skilled with daggers, batos, javelins, couched lance, spears, and I guess also barehanded attacks. But despite his ability to use practically any weapon, he does have one weapon in which he is far more powerful than he is with any other. And no, I'm not talking about the Reaper Sickle. The Reaper Sickle is another weapon he can use really well, but we haven't seen him use it yet, which, man, I'm kinda hyped for that, honestly. Anyway, the sword. Our basic Skelly boy loves himself a normal-ass sword. And we know this because he has such a plethora of sword skills. He has swordsmanship, he has sword mastery, he has black sword, whatever that is, sword arts, sword master, 1000 slash thrust, magic swordsman. And I didn't make that up, all of that is real and stuff he has in the story and different skills. So whatever he can do with a sword must be pretty badass for them to give him all these different things. So basically we can assume from these titles that the sword is obviously the weapon he's the most efficient with and has the most experience with, being that it's something he has throughout most of the story. We also know that with this sword he can use something called blade energy, and it's basically, we'll get into it within the abilities section right now. This is the abilities section now. Blade energy. He can cover his sword in a misty blue aura and even perform ranged attacks. He gained this skill after absorbing it from the Vantinelon Leandro, whatever you want to call him, the badass with white hair. And he was able to use it once he had achieved Enlightenment. Enlightenment being another ability he learned, which as far as we know was purely for the basis of learning blade energy. It's usually only very powerful people who are able to use this skill, so when he shows it off to people, it's often a very impressive feat and a show of power that he's even able to use this rare skill. Enlightenment was something he got from meditation, and like I was saying, as far as we know, the only purpose of meditation and enlightenment was to be able to use blade energy. Our boy also has the ability to sense any other skeletons in the vicinity, and this ability just called Sense Skeleton. He can also use an ability called Sprint. It greatly increases his speed for a certain amount of time, and it can only be used 3 times per day, so it's like a little speed boost to his already ridiculous stats in case he's fighting anything. He got the skill when he defeated the Spider Queen dungeon boss thing. And of course, our protagonist needs a skill to be able to read all the basic information and stats of a person, and in this story it's called Insight. The higher level of the skill, the more information he can decipher. He gained this skill simply from reading one of those Skyrim books that we talked about in the first video. He has something called pseudo-death, which makes it more likely to seem like he's already died if he's faking having died. He basically has the ability to pretend to be dead, but he's a skeleton, so this is like an ability he has a very natural aptitude for, and he's a lot better than almost anyone else who would have this ability because he's a skeleton. Specifically, it's 500% more effective due to him being a skeleton, and he can use it with the effects of stealth together to multiply the effects of stealth or whatever. He also has a title, Hero of the Blood Red Goblins, which, honestly, I don't even know what this does, other than basically it just means that the goblins will forever tell stories of his deeds, but yeah. Take from that what you will. He has an ability called Far East Defense, and basically it simply means he has enhanced defense knowledge of Eastern defense tactics. I don't know, it's like a strategy thing, so that's cool. He leads an army at some point and definitely came in handy. He has the ability Track, so he's able to track anyone with stealth below level 6. He also has the bone sharing perk, which makes his essence absorption that we talked about in the first video even more effective, and it can make us, I think it's likely he can use bones from other creatures as part of his body once that quirk or ability levels up because of the person he got it from. She could do that, so it would make sense if this bone sharing perk eventually becomes something that's a lot stronger, where maybe he could take, some wings from Bat, and now he's a winged skeleton. He hasn't done that yet in the story, but I don't know why he hasn't. Maybe our boy just isn't the brightest. I still love him though. Probably the coolest ability that's ever been underutilized in this story is Bone Monarch. It's the ability to bring a corpse back to life as your minion. The higher the level of the skill, the more minions you can create, and has a higher chance of stealing opponents' bones while in combat, which I've never seen our boy steal bones in combat, and I don't know why, because that would look really cool. He gained this skill after absorbing it from Gilles de Rais, who is undeniably best girl, and if you think anything else, then you're just misleading yourself. So far, the only thing he's brought back was this, skeleton wolf. After earning its loyalty, it became his minion, and the skill became significantly stronger, so we don't know exactly what he can do with it now, because we've not seen him use it since it leveled up, which, honestly, why not? I want to see this in the story. This is a super useful and awesome sounding ability. Why is our skeleton boy not using his necromancer powers, bro? You're actually able to be a necromancer yourself. For some reason, you're serving all the... I can rant for a while. Moving on, he has an extra high efficiency with heavy armor and net coverings. He has a good understanding of knight etiquette and how to behave as a knight, and the ability Dash, which he uses, literally in every chapter. It's dash, 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 dash. It greatly enhances his speed for a certain amount of time and can only be used 3 times a day. We already talked about this one, but literally I always see him using this skill, actually. He uses it all the time. So I guess dash and sprint are the same thing, just through different translations, and I didn't get that somehow. He has riding mastery and horseback charge, which I kind of put together because basically it just means that he's able to do battle on any type of mount, and it'll obey his commands, and his own horse or any mount that is under him will level up much faster. So basically it means if you're Skelly Boy's horse, your best horse. And then he just has this ability called Tactics. It's an advanced understanding of military, ground, and siege tactics, strategies, and formations, so just more to advocate how our boy should, lead armies, and when he does, he's very effective in it, as we've seen. Next, we have Mountain Adaptation, which he got from, I believe, a goblin or an orc or something, and he gets a 1.5% damage buff and 5% speed buff whenever he's in the mountains. This isn't a big deal, but I wouldn't be surprised if this somehow gave him a slight advantage in some fight in the future. I haven't seen it come into the story yet, and it'd be cool if it did, because why else does it exist? He also has Detection or True Sight that allows him to detect people around him, just like he kinda can with skeletons. He gained this skill after he absorbed it from that Imperial Knight, Leandro, and it evolved further to work passively in a certain field of distance. So basically he has, N from Hunter x Hunter, except it's always active, and that's cool. He also has adsorption. Basically, it means he can imbue his attacks with the property to liquefy solid objects, which we see him do that with his acid a lot, but also technically he could do that without the acid because it's just its own thing he can imbue his weapon with, the ability to liquefy solid objects. It's pretty insane if you think about it. And then we have his stealth skill, and this guy has level 99 or 100 or whatever. He has insane Skyrim stealth, dude. It makes him able to hide his presence and makes him incredibly difficult to be found. He gained it after he absorbed it from Rayleigh and some Imperial Knights, and he cannot be detected by any of the natural 5 senses or magic detection. So think about that for a second. The 5 senses, they can't detect him. That means you can't see him, you can't smell him, you can't touch him, you can't taste him. This man could be wiping his bones in your face and you wouldn't know he was there. On top of that, it's also immune to any magic detection. You're telling me that any mage who's got the ability to sense people within stealth? Nope, not Skelly Boy. Skelly Boy's stealth is just too good for you mages. So he doesn't really have any use for Bautis, like I mentioned in the previous video. His stealth is so broken that you literally couldn't see him wiping his ass on your face. So he doesn't need Bautis, dude. Yeah, he does not need that shit. He also has the ability Masquerade. It basically allows him to be Mystique. He can change his appearance for a set amount of time to someone he has seen, and he gained this ability from absorbing it from that one nun in the assassin organization. The catch to this is it's usually the person who made the biggest impact on him or impression upon him in the last certain period of time. So he'll look like whoever's made the biggest, like, emotional impact on him, I guess, or a biggest impression, which has been a few different people, usually Leandro. We've also seen him use it on Isaac. We're almost to magic, but we got a couple more things. We got mechanical engineering. It allows him to understand complicated mechanisms and simple machines very quickly. He gained it from absorbing it from the same assassin we talked about earlier, and it allowed him at one point to immediately identify the inner workings of a ballista or something like that. So I guess it's useful for understanding things, which understanding things, knowledge is power, so that's cool. He also has something called fungus gathering. It's the knowledge and the use of gathering different types of funguses and spores, and it can be leveled up to become spore magic. I don't know what that is, but from the description it says that you can control the growth of fungus and spores in other people's bodies. That sounds like the scariest shit ever. Like, the scariest magic. Like, you're telling me this man's gonna make, like, this slight little bit of fungus you have, like, growing on your skin or in your toenails just explode and murder you? I don't want that. That sounds like, I'd rather starve or burn, like, catch on fire and burn to death. That sounds awful. He has an eye for poison, meaning that he has the knowledge of all types of poison in the world and the ability to sense it in anything that contains it, but he's a skeleton, so I don't really think he can be poisoned anyway. He also has a material gathering, and he can gather materials from animals and other such things. Material synthesis, which allows him to turn it into potions, elixirs, and items. Super basic stuff. He has the ability Fear, which basically just means he's scary, and he can dominate the minds of those who are drastically weaker than him. On top of that, there's Interrogation, which allows him to basically have a much higher chance of hearing the truth when inflicting pain. Punishment, which is a higher chance, which basically allows him to have higher chances of getting blessings from goddesses, something that we don't really understand too much about at this point in the story, because we've not seen any blessings from goddesses, or seen the goddesses really do much of anything, other than a statue that seemed to attack Isaac at some point under a turtle, so we still don't really get anything about the goddesses. He also has magic engineering, which is very similar to the other engineering ability he has. It basically just allows him to understand super simple magic devices. And then there's all the stuff he got from being a skeleton knight for a short time before he died as a skeleton knight. It allows him to be way more proficient in horse riding, heavy armor, weapon speed, and he can summon his own skeleton horse, which is pretty freaking awesome. It increases the XP gain of all of his allies and gives him designated protection, which we'll talk more about in a second. Okay, it's been a second. Designated protection allows him to absorb damage in the place of another individual, so it's like what Bofuri's main character can do with her, like, super speed block thing. Basically, he can just take damage for someone else. And then he has Fiery Fist, which basically is just what we talked about. It's an increase to his unarmed power. And the very last ability I have written down is Accumulated Strike. He's able to stack damage from one attack into the next attack even when it's defended against. So say he hits you 7 times and you blocked every single one of them, but then he lands that 8th uppercut. Well, you're gonna feel all of those 7 hits that you blocked in that 8th uppercut that he landed, because his strikes were accumulating until one of them landed, and then I don't even know if they stop accumulating, so maybe you're just gonna get pummeled and it's just gonna get worse and worse. I mean, this seems like a pretty powerful ability when you think about it. Now in the second to last section, it's time to talk about magic. His first magic ability we're gonna talk about is his acid magic. He can create an incredibly strong acid that he can cover his blade with or use as a projectile. He gained it from the Kraken. Then we have dual casting, so it allows him to use more than one skill at a time. He can use 2 types of magic at once, and he gained it from one of the mages in the royal court. Now, we talked about this last time, but in order to use magic, you need to have magic circuits. If you want to understand those better, then you can also go back and watch that first video if you haven't watched it yet. It basically allows him to use magic, and it's one of the only things in this world that allows a person to use magic, which most individuals cannot use. He also has freeze magic, which allows him to create large quantities of ice. Gust magic, which is basically just wind magic, like Avatar shit. Blaze and fire magic, which means that he has like level 2 fire magic, which I guess means it's probably one of his more powerful types of magic. And then lightning magic / polarity. He can create crackling lightning and either cover his blade with it or use it as a projectile. It was a magic taught to him by Isaac and later enhanced when he learned the ability that will allow him to chain it together and make it affect a huge area of effect, hitting a whole bunch of different opponents. Basically, lightning is probably his most powerful type of magic right now, all things considered. But he also has something that we've not really seen him use yet, called gravity manipulation magic, which is kind of self-explanatory. It was likely used as an ability to help one of the mages fly, so I wouldn't be surprised if our Skelly boy can fly now. He has Mind Strike, which is like a magic mental attack. It seems kind of lame, but maybe I'm wrong. We haven't seen him use it yet, as far as I know. If I'm wrong about anything I say in this video, you guys can correct me down in the comments. And then there's overlapping magic. It allows him to double cast the same spell and increase its power by a total of 250%. So instead of just increasing it by 100%, like by combining two spells, he basically gets 3.5. How that math works, I don't know, but it's a skill and it sounds really overpowered. Then he has paralysis magic, and for any of us who played Skyrim, we know that's super broken. He has magic detection, which allows him to discern different types of magic that are being used and that type of stuff. He has distortion magic, which is just like super weak illusion magic, and mage chemistry, which allows him to transform and control the elements of magic in his own creative ways, whatever that means. I'm excited to see it. And then lastly, he has force shield, which we've actually seen him use in some pretty cool ways. He's used it as like platforms for him to run on, kind of like the shield hero does from, Shield Hero. But you can also, of course, just use it like a force shield to protect himself. So this is a super useful defense magic ability that we've seen him use, and we'll probably continue to see him use in the future. Sorry if I've sounded like nasally or anything throughout this video. I have a scratchy throat right now, and I wanted to get this video out, so I hope you guys don't mind the nasally, scratchy voice. Anyway, for this last section, we're going to talk about the equipment that he usually has. Now, this is equipment, so there's going to be times where he doesn't have this, but it seems like the large majority of the time he has at least these 3 items. The first of which is Gilded Armor. It's a tentative name for the purple armor that the skeleton soldier uses for the majority of the series, and there's different variations of it, like when he's working in TNT where it gets like upgraded, but for the most part he usually just has the plain old purple armor. Then he has like the lamest named sword ever that actually looks really cool. It's just called the Blade Energy Sword, or at least that's what we've called it in the community so far. It's a large double-edged two-handed great sword with 6 holes in the blade. It's one of the finest blades in Grismir's Temple of the Ancestors, and only someone who can use blade energy can wield this sword, hence why we call it the Blade Energy Sword. And the last thing that he has a lot of the time, and maybe not as often as he has these other 2 items, but a large amount of the time he also has Reyna's Pendant. Now this pendant has the ability Correct Judgment, which allows the user to find a solution to the situation at hand. Not really, it basically just tells him when he's hecked and when he's not hecked, if you know what I mean. It also raises all of his hero level skills by 15%. I don't really know what that means, but cool. If the situation's too severe to find a solution, the pendant will crumble away to dust, and it can only be used once a week. So basically, whenever that pendant turns to dust, our Skelly boy's gonna die, and that's that, and there's not really a way around it. It's kind of like a little foreshadowing at this point, when it's like, when you see that pendant turn to dust, it's like, oh, that's it, something happened, and now there's no hope. Except for the fact that he can go back and do it all again, just he has to avoid whatever situation that made the pendant turn to dust. But there was a lot of things to cover in this video, a lot of abilities to talk about, so I went through it kind of quickly. Hopefully you're able to catch all of it. If you have any questions about his abilities and how they work in tandem, maybe we can talk about it or even theorize about it down in the comments below, so don't be afraid to go down there and leave a comment. And don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. Also, I have a new outro. You might have seen it in the last video as well, but it is done by a friend of mine who runs a channel called Rayit, and if you're not subscribed to it now, well, you should be. So I'm going to put a link to it down in the description below. I expect anyone who's gotten to this point in the video to go and at the very least give his music a listen, and if you like his beats and if you like what he does, you can give him a subscribe and like the song you liked. He's got 4 of them out as I'm recording this right now, and I enjoy all of them. I use Neon Summer for my outro, and he was nice enough to let me do that, so please show me some appreciation by showing him some appreciation, and I hope all of you have a wonderful rest of your day, night, or evening, or whatever it is. Yeah, whatever. Bye. I'm excited for the series that's coming next, and you should be too.